Hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode of Deep True Crime. I'm Manny Rodriguez. Thank you for joining me today. In this episode, we're covering the Highland Park July 4th parade shooting. And we're going to be diving into what we know, who has been arrested, and dive into a little of his background. This is an extremely tragic, sad event. For many, 4th of July will never be the same. There were multiple mass shootings on 4th of July of this year, but I'm going to be focused on the Highland Park shooting for this episode. And I want to dive deep into what happened. And the whole purpose of my channel is to make you aware of what could go wrong out there, to hopefully help us stay safer. And when you think of something like this, how do you stay safer? Not go to the parade? Stop your whole life? I don't know what the answer is to make this particular incident not occur. As we dive deep into him, we realize he really had a lot of problems. And from what I can tell, it looks like he had some mental trouble. And when I say that in a way that he didn't see things the same way we see things. He saw things in an angry way. And we're going to dive into who this wannabe rapper is. A gunman opens fire from a rooftop on 4th of July at a parade in the wealthy Chicago suburb of Highland Park on July 4th of 2022. He killed 7 innocent people and injured dozens more in a sniper-style attack that sent hundreds fleeing for their lives. The attack left the leafy community in lockdown and the greater Chicago area on high alert as their killer gunman remained on the loose for hours throughout the day. By evening, police had identified a person of interest in the shooting. 22-year-old local Robert Crimo III, and then nabbed him as he tried to flee the area in his 2010 silver Honda Fit. The gunman had turned the parade route filled with families into a battle zone within seconds, picking off the innocent Independence Day revelers with a high-powered rifle, pumping out rapid-fire shots shortly after 10 a.m. According to one parade goer, he said he was very military style, methodical in the way he was crouched and shooting. Witnesses, including some who initially confused the gunshot for holiday fireworks, said they counted at least 20 shots being fired. There was a lot of footage from parade goers that, as you can see, I'm sharing footage from parade goers, and they already had their cameras going in many parts. And witnesses, including some of those who did initially confuse the gunshot for fireworks, they said they counted at least 20 shots being fired. One dad put his son inside a dumpster in order to keep him safe. Another dad and her daughter were hiding behind a dumpster for about an hour before police directed them into the basement of a nearby business. There were people that were hiding with one man who had been shot in the head, more like his ear side, and he was bleeding all over his face, and they were trying to stay with him to keep him comfort. There was another girl who got escorted out that was shot in the leg. So she was being helped, and people were trying to help one another through this terrible incident. One lady said when she came out of the basement, she said the streets looked like a battle zone. That's a scary moment. 5 adults died at the scene, and another 2 would later die at the hospital. Rest in peace to all those individuals that were killed. Of those injured, 26 people ranging anywhere from 8 to 85 years old were taken to a nearby HealthSystem hospitals with gunshot wounds to their abdomen and limbs. About 4 or 5 of them are said to be children. And so authorities believe that the shooter had climbed onto the roof of a building overlooking the parade route using a ladder attached to the dwelling. Authorities believe the shooter had climbed onto the roof of a building overlooking the parade using a ladder attached to the dwelling. There was a rifle that was later recovered from the roof, and DNA on it is said to belong to the shooter. To give you a little visual on what this looks like, I'm not very familiar with Chicago. Thank you to Daily Mail for creating this, and I'm just going to use it to share. You can see where Highland Park is. At 10 a.m., the parade begins outside the Highland Park Library. That's where number 1 is on the screen. And so they're going in the direction going north to Central Avenue, and then they make a left on Central Avenue. 14 minutes later, the gunman opens fire from the roof of a store on the parade route. You can see the distance from Highland Park to Highwood. That's where his family home is. And I'll dive in a little deeper later on that and who his parents are. But at 6:30 p.m. that day, that is when he is arrested in Lake Forest, 8 miles north of Highland Park. And so they had more than 100 law enforcement officers that were called to the parade scene or dispatched elsewhere to track down the suspected shooter. The mayor, Nancy Rotering, she said at a news conference, "This morning at 10:14, our community was terrorized by an act of violence that has shaken us to our core. Our hearts go out to the families of the victims at this devastating time. On a day that we came together to celebrate community and freedom, we are instead mourning the tragic loss of life and struggling with the terror that was brought upon us." And that exact mayor, when she won her election, she actually defeated his dad to be named mayor. After this incident, there were even several nearby cities that canceled their 4th of July celebration because all they knew was that the shooter of Highland Park was still on the run. And so they canceled all of their celebrations in a way to be safer until they knew what was going on more. People are left hurting, wanting to know, how are we going to fix this? What are some things that we can do to fix this? Everyone is hurting. Families are now left broken. They don't know what to do. They don't understand how this happened, why someone could tragically do this at a parade. And as I mentioned, witnesses were recalling that it all looked like a deadly battle zone in the Highland Park parade shooting. Now people are sharing what a deadly battle zone Highland Park parade shooting looked like. Terrified witnesses have described how this looked like a deadly battle zone when a mass shooter started killing off innocent parade goers. Hundreds of locals fled as the gunfire, which they confused for Independence Day fireworks, started ringing out just after 10 a.m. Park. 7 people were killed and dozens more injured when the shooter opened fire from the top of a building overlooking the parade route. And then we find out that Robert Crimo wore women's clothing and he fired over 70 rounds. He was dressed in women's clothing to disguise himself and aid in his escape. He climbs onto the roof of this business and fired off 70 rounds from a high-powered rifle similar to an AR-15. He then ditches the legally purchased weapon on the roof so he could blend in with the crowd as he fled during the chaos. And the police believe that he wore women's clothing in order to conceal his facial tattoos and his identity. He was seen on video camera in women's clothing. And so Crimo, he went to his mother's house nearby and borrowed her car to flee the area. And so he remained on the loose for hours after this mass shooting before he was nabbed about 5 miles from the scene. This is when a bystander spotted his vehicle and then called 911. And cops find another rifle in the suspect's car, and they even find more firearms described as potentially pistols in his apartment in nearby Hollywood after he was eventually taken into custody. Now, he lived right behind his parents' home in a little apartment that most likely his parents were paying for. So my guess is this little apartment was on the parents' property. And this is the house that his parents that he lived at behind the back, in the back of the home. And my whole thing is like, how do we prevent more of this happening? I'm not into politics. I'm not even going to play like I'm into politics, and I'm like, I don't know what would be a good solution. People have been suffering from mental problems before any of us were born. And so there are things inside people that I don't know. I don't have answers, but we know Bobby Crimo did leave proof that he was thinking some bad things. And so Bobby Crimo, 22 years old, ID'd as the person of interest. They did say that there was DNA on a rifle that was found on the crime scene. That would definitely tie him to that. And as the mayor said, he legally obtained this gun and he was unknown to police. He wasn't on their radar. They have him in custody now, and he had chilling social media. This 22-year-old local amateur rapper, he had a history of disturbing online posts with a history of disturbing social media posts. Robert Bobby Crimo III, who performs as Awake the Rapper, is in custody, and there is an IMDb page under Crimo's name that identifies him as a rapper, singer, songwriter, actor, and director from the Chicago area. One user did write that he was mostly known for his hit song On My Mind, released in October of 2018. And it is said that video did amass millions of plays so far across online streaming platforms. He posted a video to his since deleted YouTube page that included an image of a man with a long gun face down in an apparent pool of blood with cops standing in front of him. That's pretty chilling there. You can see him here in a 2021 Twitter post wearing a Trump flag. He was a very big Trump supporter, going out to Trump's rally. He was a big supporter, and he even went to one rally. This was posted on his YouTube page. It shows him dressed as Waldo among Trump's supporters. Not too sure where Waldo comes in relation to Donald Trump, but maybe there's something there that you can share with me in the comments. And so he was identified as the person of interest and taken into custody hours after the parade massacre. He even filmed this one video, and in the video, he's more of a hip-hop artist. So as the mayor said, he did use a legally obtained weapon in this 4th of July slaughter near Chicago, Illinois, in Highland Park, Illinois. And Highland Park Mayor Nancy Rotering, who did ban assault rifles in 2013, gave the update while telling the Today Show that she had known the suspect when he was a Cub Scout and she was the leader. So Mayor Nancy has close ties with him. She said, I don't know where the gun came from, but I do know that it was legally obtained. She said she didn't believe he was previously known to police before this massacre, but noted the apparent forewarnings in his disturbing rap lyrics and social media posts. She said that we know that several postings really reflected a plan and a desire to commit carnage for a long time in advance. She revealed that she knew the suspect, this 22-year-old wannabe rapper, suggesting that he clearly had a mental breakdown. She says, I know him as somebody who was a Cub Scout when I was a Cub Scout leader. He was just a little boy. She tells the Today Show that. He was not known to law enforcement as someone to be on the lookout for. So there were no red flags before this. I don't know if he had a bunch of videos that were flagged or what, but sometimes, rap songs are what they are, right? They could be a little ornery. And so you don't always know that the intent at the end of the day is to do something harmful. But obviously, this guy had something devious on his mind and he wanted to hurt other people. The mayor says, and it's one of those things where you step back and you say, what happened? How did somebody become this angry, this hateful, and then take it out on innocent people who literally were just having a family day? Goes back to the question, what are we going to do about this? The people, when they come out in large amounts, they seem to get things done. Onesies, twosies, they don't get much done. It's almost like we need to come out in large forms. This is why I do this. Raise awareness. Look at how bad this stuff can be. We have to be careful, and as a society, we have to ask ourselves, what are we going to do about this? How careful can we be? Because, I mean, we can't beat a gun. We cannot beat a gun. You get it. It's amazing how bad something can turn in a flip of a switch. And you look at something like this, the last thing they thought. If you look at some of these videos, people were just like, wait, do I hear what I really hear? And, they're just clapping and doing things. At first, they're just, like I hear something, and then it's like this guy's still clapping there. He's not realizing what's gone wrong. And then I think more and more people start like, this is bad, we need to go. Not everyone was moving until everyone was moving. And at first they did not hear all of this. You could see the yellows, who are supposed to probably work in the scene, are moving towards the sounds, the shots fired. One guy is filming it. I guess he knows there's footage that is going to go viral. But look at all of them running. These are hundreds and hundreds of people. This is how people also get injured and hurt. Seeing things like this is what makes this like so heart-wrenching. What people witness, what people went through. And it's like, what would make a person do this? And the uncle of Robert Bobby Crimo III, wannabe rapper, the uncle said there were no signs that his nephew would carry out such carnage. His exact quote was, "There were no signs that I saw that would make him do this." He is known to be a recluse who just stays to himself, and his uncle says he's never seen his nephew act violent or exhibit concerning behavior at all. And he said, "I have nothing bad to say about him." Well, now you probably do. But he said he's a quiet kid. He's usually on his own. He's a lonely, quiet person. He keeps everything to himself. So basically, you really did not know him, is what it sounds like. The uncle said that he spends a lot of time on YouTube and didn't think he had a job. He said, "I associate with him, but I don't really like to engage with him. I say hi, and then when I leave, I say bye. That's it." So the uncle didn't exhibit any signs of really bad behavior, but it doesn't even sound like he really knew him. And the uncle, who is the brother of his father, Robert Crimo Jr., says that we are good people here, and to have this is devastating. I'm so heartbroken for all the families who lost their lives. One former classmate of Robert Crimo, he said he couldn't describe much about the suspected shooter, except he was a rapper who released music while they were in school together at Highland Park High. And Mark Heyman said he always seemed a little off, but I can't describe it much beyond that. A neighbor said that Crimo would play loud heavy metal riding around with an electric bike. She said, "We don't really know him, but we see him riding around the neighborhood. We never had any interaction with him other than we just see him driving around." Both the uncle and neighbor said Crimo's family had deep roots in the community. After a long day manhunt that involved local and federal authorities, Crimo was arrested. Here is the gunman's father, Bob Crimo, who ran unsuccessfully for mayor of Highland Park in 2019, where he owns a deli. The suspect's mother, Denise Pacina, is an alternative healer who was once arrested on suspicion of domestic battery. You can see here Bob Crimo, his dad's Twitter on here, and you can see under posts that he likes, he was a big believer in the Second Amendment, where he liked the post from Ben Owen, "Protect the Second Amendment like your life depends on it." Now, personally, I don't think that makes them a bad parent by any means. I don't know anything about all that. I'm just sharing with you a little of his background. I'm not trying to pass judgment on the parents by any means necessary. I don't know outside of what I've been learning of this shooter and shooting. So I'm just sharing with you who his dad is, who his mom is. Outside of that, I don't know much about them or this family by any means. I just know that this is a very tragic incident, a very tragic shooting that I just want to know how we're going to prevent this stuff from happening again. My friends, I'm Manny Rodriguez. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you have an amazing day. If this is the type of content you like to follow, please hit that subscribe button. Let YouTube know you got some value, and they'll let you know when I upload content or I go live. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to serving you again. Peace.